All right.
Okay,
Go.
cool. I don't think that we'll probably get to every single thing that is on our list, but I purposely made it bigger just to have more rather than less to cover. And I was thinking actually we could start with number 5, the third party communications, just to get that out of the way, and pass it over to Paul. I think Paul, are you
Yeah, I'm here.
able
Yeah,
to address
sure.
that one?
So this is one of those sort of like things we could survey on, but then we have to deal with it for 6 more months. So we just want to sort of take your temperature on it. Um, we occasionally get emails or phone calls or solicitations from various third parties, some of whom are connected with us in one way or another, some of whom are not. So you'll get an email and it's like, I'm putting in a law review together for high school students to submit legal notes. And somebody else has, a mock trial training camp, and somebody else wants to run an online competition, as Suzanne did. And we have to decide what we're going to do with that. Do we pass that to our state coordinators? Do we filter it out? If we're going to filter, what's the basis on which we should be filtering it? So this year, I asked policy and communications to get together and look at policies, and they kind of looked back at me and were like, we don't know what they want. We'll write down whatever they want, and then you can follow it. So the question is sort of, when we get these solicitations in, is that something that you guys want us to just send on, and then you can make a decision whether to pass it on further? You want us to not pass on anything? You want us to pass on some things, but not others? Just that it's thrown out for the sense of the Senate.
How about if we do do it one way instead of an open-ended question? Is there anybody who has a problem with the national board just passing on the information that it receives from third parties?
You want us to comment in chat? Or
Yeah, please. Or actually just, you can comment in chat if you want to, or just say if anybody has an issue with it, maybe just take yourself off of mute and share with the group.
so this is Marguerite Herman in Wyoming, and I'm happy to take a look at everything unless it's obviously scam or something. If there are no red lights going off, alarms going off, I would say go ahead and share it. It's easy enough to delete or to if it's questionable, we can always send it out as an FYI. So I guess you can do initial screening, but go ahead and pass on something if it looks like it has merit.
Marguerite, what would you think that an initial screening might entail?
Well, I'm trying to think. If it's something in Bora Bora, that costs thousands of dollars, then I would say no. I don't know. I can't think right now what would raise flags. Something that looks completely absurd, or that I don't know. I can't even think of anything right now. But
Okay.
I kind of trust Paul and company to. If it looks like it has any merit at all, could possibly have merit, I would say maybe err in the direction of passing it on.
Okie doke.
So Paul,
We will
does
just
that
do that.
that
Yep, that's what we'll
answer your
do.
question?
And I
Okay.
don't think we'll need to reduce it to a policy, because we're sort of not putting any kind of prescriptive things in here. And Ellen, I'll try to put that either there or in the subject matter of the headline, or something else like that, so that it differentiates itself in some way from our usual NHS MTC communications. But that's not a problem. Thanks, everybody. I'll go back on mute.
If you get anything
Okay.
from a Nigerian prince, Paul, you can delete that one.
You'd think that, but Gallagher, she's getting close to those millions.
Any minute now.
All right. I know I see Wheeler said that he's having trouble with audios, and I know we'll want him to weigh in, but why why don't we go ahead and at least start talking some more about virtual mock trial, because I'm certain that that's probably at the top of all of our minds right now. I- let's start with issues. Are there any particular issues that folks are having with virtual mock trial right now, in organizing or getting things up and running?
I'd like to respond to that if I could. This is Marguerite in Wyoming again. And we have been sort of keeping things up in the air because even 6 weeks from now, you kind of don't know what the world's going to be like. But I think what we're kind of coming up with is that this is going to involve a level of expertise that neither George and I nor I have, and I think we're going to look to hire people. Maybe there's a reporting service that handles things like depositions and stuff like that, virtually for attorneys. Maybe hire someone like that, just someone who will have no worries about the substance of the competition, just pulling the levers. And so we're sort of to the point now of finding somebody and just paying for their expertise to sit down at a screen and be the Zoom master. And because there's going to be enough other stuff of substance that we're going to be dealing with that we don't want to have that also. Plus the fact that we'd have to start learning it now from scratch. And so to have someone with expertise, I think is going to be well worth the cost.
If you were to say what you were looking for in hiring somebody, because we're thinking about that too, and I'm not really sure what a job description would look like.
Good question. Except that some facility, well, again, our scale is very, very tiny. So our needs are modest, but basically it's to just manage the coming and the going, the what status you're going to give people, panelist or attendee, and make sure you can troubleshoot, let people in if they get kicked off. So it's someone who's, I guess, I was participating in some candidate forums just earlier this month, and the job of Zoom master, which is sort of sit there and it's kind of like, the Wizard of Oz, just pulling levers behind the screen and making sure things run smoothly. So, facility with admitting people to rooms, assigning them, different levels of participation, that sort of thing. And I know there's a ton out there these days. I don't know, frankly, what to pay them, what the going rate is. But again, this Wyoming reporting service, I think we're going to consult with them, and they do tiny things, but they might have someone on staff who could do, work under sort of like contractual service and help us out. Anyway.
Anybody else contracting for technical support with Zoom? No?
Actually, so this is Daniel from Delaware. We went with our trial graphics people. So we actually just sent the contract in this week, since we now have dates for the competition.
And do you have kind of a job description for the people that will be involved, or?
I mean, yeah, we talked to them about what we needed, so it's not anything written, but trial graphics, just for those that don't know, like, their bread and butter is running graphical presentations at trials and doing like arbitrations and whatnot. So they've actually been hosting a fair number of remote hearings and remote trials with breakout rooms and remote arbitrations over the last 6 to 9 months. So that's sort of what they do. And so we basically said, we need you to do that, but we need you to do that for 300 people possibly. And so they actually are going to have 2 coordinators. They can have up to, I think, 1,000 people that can join the Zoom. And then they're going to have 2 coordinators that are going to be responsible for moving everybody around. And are monitoring all of the rooms and making sure that everybody goes where they need to go.
Okay.
So we also met with Trial Graphics, And it's a little steep because we host multiple districts and then state. So I know, Dan, you have the one larger tournament. And so we are enlisting volunteers to help us with the Zoom side, and my staff and I, Emily, who's on the call, we think we can handle the kind of managing of putting folks in rooms, but we plan to do some scrimmages and tutorials with teams ahead of time so that it'll streamline at the beginning. But because of our minimal budget, we decided we're going to invest more in the process software for scoring, because we think that's going to be a game changer for us. But I know each place is different, and our tech support, depending on where we're all at. So I totally get that not everyone is confident in doing that, but we're going to figure it out. So that's where we've gone. Trial Graphics looks great, but it was a little costly even with a deal. So that's just kind of where we're at. Part of process, and we can talk more about it if you'd like to. They do all the Zoom links. They will link your judges depending on the level, and it's by team. The cost is by team, and so there's different levels that you can work through. And Justin's really great to work with there, so I'm happy to share more information if you'd like.
Carrie.
Okay. Yeah.
In Georgia, we kind of reinvented the season a little bit, and made it. We got rid of our geographic regions and are having all of the teams compete in a big statewide competition, and we're having the first 4 rounds of that occur over about 3.5 weeks. And
Okay.
so what we're going to do is we're going to randomly assign all 4 rounds of competition. And then that will let me come up with a schedule of who's going to compete when. And we're going to use weeknights and weekends on Zoom. And so at any one time, it might only have like 8 or 9 courtrooms happening in a Zoom session kind of thing. And then since we're not power matching, the scoring doesn't have to be done right away the same day. And it's random, so we don't have to worry about from round to round who is going to be with who based on record and everything.
Oh, so you're not doing power matching?
No,
for the preliminary stuff?
Pretty much, yes. So preliminary round, it's going to be all random draw. And then after the 4th round,
Okay.
we'll rank everybody, have a cutoff line, and then do 2 more rounds with that group, with random drawn from brackets. And then the top 32 will go on to like an NCAA style bracket tournament to narrow down to the state finalist team.
And when you say random draw, does that mean that you're taking into account people having a balance in terms of playing sides and not going up against people they've seen before?
Yes, yeah. So what I'll do is I'll randomly draw round 1, and the first card I pick up will be plaintiff, second card will be defense. And then for round 2, we'll randomly match teams from those 2 columns across it, and then everybody flips sides. So in the first 2 rounds, everyone's done plaintiff and defense. And we'll do the same thing for 3 and 4. So we've got it worked out. I mean, it's not purely 100% random with everything. It's an engineered random for the sides like that. So at the end of the day, through 6 rounds, you'll do 3 plaintiff and 3 defense. But we don't have to have results right away to make the matches for the next day or anything, because you might compete on a Tuesday and then your next round will be on a Saturday. And so the scoring doesn't have to happen immediately to find results and that kind of thing.
And are you letting teams determine their availability? Because we're doing something similar to that. We've got sets of rounds that are on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays from February 1st through March 6th.
Yeah.
And the teams can sign up for what fits their schedule within that block, although we're dividing it so that you can only do 2 rounds in any one 2-week block, so that we don't have teams, trying to schedule all their time in the last 2 weeks of the competition.
I'm not going that far with it, because I want to have a balance of dates, and I want to be able to put the dates with the number of judging panel members that I need out there to go ahead and start recruiting people. but I'm going to give teams a chance to let me know, we can't do Wednesday nights because all of our kids are involved in one thing, or February 24th is just a bad day for our team. And so if they can let me know, some of those off things, then I can probably schedule around those and be able to avoid those kind of big conflicts and everything. And then I'm going to
So
tell
in
the
other words,
teams,
it's an opt-out.
well, it's yeah, kind of. And then I'm going to, or let me know what dates to avoid for you. And then I'm going to assign the trial dates, and I'm going to tell the teams very early January, here are your 4 trial dates for the preliminary rounds. These 4 specific dates, so have them set aside in your kids' calendars. And so they know when they're going to have to be ready for trial. They won't know side, they won't know opponent yet, but they'll just know we're competing on Tuesday, February 2nd, Saturday, February 6th, Wednesday, February 10th, and Sunday afternoon, February 14th, kind of thing. And that way they can schedule the kids' calendars and whatnot. So we don't have to do we're not doing a lot of power matching with it in the immediate results. So spreading it out is helping a bit. We're not worrying about the geographic regions and trying to do it all on one Saturday.
Anybody else doing stuff that's different from what they have done in past years?
In Oregon, we're doing similarly, we're spreading things out over the course of 3 weeks. We're not giving teams a lot of choice. So they're just going to get assigned, and mainly from our end, it's because of the numbers in the different regions and what I can manage in Zoom. So I've tried to spread it out so that I don't have 1 gazillion people on a particular day, because we just won't be able to manage. So we've done that over the 3-week period. And then also they won't know what day they're competing, what days they're competing, because they're also competing on multiple days until registration closes, which is not until mid-December. So as soon as registration closes, I'll know for sure what my numbers look like, and then I can make certain that the way I have it spread out preliminarily actually works. So then we can get that out to them. So it is going to be different. And I'm still debating about whether or not I'm going to power match we usually power match in regionals unless we have a very tiny region. But it is such a time sink that I'm not sure I'm going to have time to do it between rounds, because there will be consecutive rounds on those days. And I'm just worried that it's not going to come off in the time that I have between rounds. So it's possible that we're going to limit power matching as well in the regional.
Anybody else? One question I have, other question I have for folks, and I don't know if people have been reading the chat box, but it looks like we were talking about backgrounds and what the rules are for that. And I haven't been following the whole thing, but Paul, you put what our rules are at nationals. Is that what you did? Paul?
I'm working on it. Give me a second. I'm not working on my ideal tech here. This is my office is doing its tech upgrade in the middle of all of this, so I'm working off of my PC.
Oh, good.
Just trying to get everything done. No, this is actually not the nationals rules. These are the Pennsylvania rules that are effective as of today. In fact, our teams don't even know about these rules. But Kim had asked if I could circulate the 3 rules to which I was referring. So they are, what we're thinking for background. We do recognize that we have some students who may feel really uncomfortable with whatever their background is at their house or whatever. So we didn't want to forbid it, but we're trying to pretty strongly discourage it. A second rule that talks about, like, if your background is visible, making sure that you do that in a smart way. Like, both A, not accidentally giving away your team affiliation, and B, limiting the amount of political baggage or socio-political baggage that you bring into that, just because of the nature of the competition and the ways in which that could be judged wrongly. We sort of we put in the consistent with self-expression because I do think it's a problem to tell people like, don't put up the things that matter to you. Don't make political statements. That doesn't belong here. I don't believe in that at all. But it creates really tricky judging dynamics at that point, and it could create protests, quite well-founded protests that then we have to address. So we're sort of saying like, if it wouldn't be the case in the courtroom, please don't bring it to this. And I feel squirrely about that as a compromise, but I don't see another option because I could easily imagine, this becoming a part of an internet flame war of one kind or another. And our environment is politicized enough that it would not be hard to believe that could occur. And then the third part was an addition that we added to our rule on costuming and props. That basically just says, if you do your room up in a way that's costuming or props, right? Like, you're playing a cop and whatever. And so you've got, various police things behind you, like that counts just as much against you as if you'd worn the uniform to school and to the courtroom. So those are the three sort of components of that and how we've chosen to address them. I'll be blunt. This is mostly just stuff that I wrote up and that my committee approved. So I'm not confident it's the best practices, but Kim asked me to put it in chat, so I did.
Okay. You said something about the background stuff making you feel that you felt a little squirrely about it. Would you expand on that and say what else was on the table?
Well, I mean, we didn't go through a lot of options because we all sort of reached the same place. And I don't want to sort of get political here, certainly, but like Amber's background right now, I think is totally appropriate and it doesn't bother me at all. But if I'm, a red judge from the reddest part of my state, and now I'm giving Amber a 5, she doesn't deserve the 5. But I also don't feel comfortable with the idea that we're silencing expression of things that matter to people in that way. But I don't know how we can run a competition without the risk that if you don't caution them against doing that, and then there's a cost to that speech, an unfair cost to that speech, certainly. But I was on the phone, we were joking around while we were having our state committee meeting about this, and my co-coord, one of our state chairman's like, oh, you mean like this gun rack here or this mounted fish here? And I was like, yeah, that's what I mean, because like I don't know how that's going to read to every judge, and we can't be in the game of being like, okay, now we need to filter the judges that you see based on we don't know, and we don't want to go there. But I was very uncomfortable with both solutions is what I came down to. So the language here reflects that discomfort and reflects that sort of equanimity about how to approach this question. And that's, of course, doubly true if your sponsoring organization is a state organization and has First Amendment obligations or their state law analogs. So I think it's a really tricky issue, but we felt like we needed to say something about it because there was always the risk that if you don't say something about it and somebody's got, their Biden Harris and their Hope and the whatever else around behind them, and then a judge mentions that during the critique, like now it's nuclear, right? Because now you've got a judge talking about something that's nowhere in the rules, and was there discrimination? Was that the reason? And it becomes really potentially problematic. And we never had to deal with that in courtrooms, right? Not in any meaningful way. Like maybe you could put a button on or whatever, but even then I think our students sort of understood that just wasn't something that you brought into that space. But now that we're coming into their space, it feels like that dynamic is inverted. And, we didn't know what to do with it, but we did want to sort of put it out there and be like, consistent with your right of self, like you have the right to do this, but like you shouldn't. This isn't a good idea for this particular forum because it creates problems for this particular competitive forum. But, that given my own approach to politics and my own approach to free speech and things like that, I'm not comfortable with us taking that position as an organization, but I don't know how you can run a judged competition based on individuated performance with a diverse pool of students and diverse pool of judges, and not at least address this issue, even if it blows. And I think, Michael, you're right. I mean, it is sort of a time, place, and manner, except, you know, it's not least restrictive means and whatever. Like I don't want to go down into the deep constitutional theory of it. It's clearly a suggestion that you limit your right to free expression, which I don't like suggesting. On the other hand, you know, we do that all the time, right? If we were saying you're going to go for a job interview, you would counsel a student, like, don't necessarily wear all of your politics on your body, because you don't know who you're interviewing with and you don't know what their reaction will be. So it's a middle position. It's the best that we could do, but we sort of said, you know, this is our kind of way of saying, like, if it's something that shouldn't be judged, then maybe you shouldn't have it there, is our kind of way of trying to toe that line. But again, I'm not wedded to it. I don't know that that's best practice. That's just the best I could come up with to sort of balance those two inclinations.
Okay. I can't remember if we talked about this at our last meeting, but it would be great if we could come up with some sort of specific repository in our website or wherever we're putting things, where we can all sort of start putting specifically virtual rules that we're coming up with, so that we can kind of riff off of each other. Is that something that's a possibility, Michael?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we've got a page on the state coordinators part of the website, on the members page, with samples of other things that a lot of it's from Idaho, Iowa, South Carolina, and Georgia, but examples of score sheets and other kind of things that states have used, that we welcome submissions and use of. So we can add to that as well. It would need to have any submissions, emailed to me directly, and then I can add them to the website as they come in.
Okay. Yeah, it would be great to have just a kind of like a subfolder that's, I don't know that we'd keep it forever, but just for right now, that is specifically geared towards virtual stuff, so that we can, kind of build off of each other. And on that topic, I can't remember who was going to share this, but we had talked at our last meeting about language in the Code of Ethical Conduct related to virtual competition. And I'm wondering if there's anybody who has that would be willing to share that.
I shared a little bit of mine, I think, with Michael and with maybe Laura. Did I send it to you possibly? Just our couple of paragraphs that essentially say you get disqualified if you break these rules. So yeah. We were quite blunt in our and how this is going to work, but we did share that a little bit.
Mess around and find out.
Yeah, I mean, ours was
okay. Is there a way?
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No. That's fine. If you would like me to share that, I'm happy to.
Okay, great. I mean, even if you could just put the language in an email and send it to the state coordinators listserv, that would be lovely.
On it.
John Wheeler, are you on the line now? John, did we lose you?
He said he was on the line, and let me see. I don't have the participant list. Oh, do I have the participant list? Oh, here
he's on the participant list, but both things are muted.
Well, then it's. I know there's lots of people who have been working on the national virtual rules and processes and procedures. So I'll just ask anybody who's been working with that. Are there any updates or anything significant that's happened since the last time that we met that would be good for folks in this group to know about?
The COPS guidance was sent out. I think Paul sent it out it was before last month's third Thursday meeting. Is that right, Paul? And nothing's been really added to or discussed about it since then.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a college tournament at Penn State last weekend, and they used balloting software that one of their students designed as part of his side business. So I'll be exploring with him, modifying that. He's volunteered to do some work with us. It's not clear whether it'd be paid or unpaid for Pennsylvania. And we're not clear that we're going to do that over one of the jot forms or what others are doing. But I think, I think as that sort of group of folks comes together, I think that we even put a small committee together of people who are going to be looking at the different options. And then we'll try to sort of put, 2 or 3 options on the national website at a particular location and send it out to everybody to say, like, these are some things that funnel in. Because I think one of the issues is not just getting a form that works, but getting a form that exports in the way that you need it to into whatever you're going to use to do your power matching. The form that works part is very easy. You can do that 100 ways. Getting it to be able to dump into whatever you're using, that's going to be trickier.
Okay. All right. Who is as sick of virtual mock trial as I am right now? Is there anything else we want to add to this discussion? All right, let's move on to some other things. Cynthia, are you on the line?
She's not. She let me know at the last minute that she had
Okay.
a family thing come up that she had to step out for. So she's not able to join us today.
So one of the things that I put on the list was stuff around case development, and we might, Sean, I don't want to put you on the spot, but would you be willing to talk a little bit about the case balancing stuff that we just went through for our national case?
Yeah, I can talk about it a little bit.
Okay.
So South Carolina uses this case balancing tool that they developed, and Cynthia has talked about it a couple times here and there, so I don't know to what degree we're all familiar with it, but basically what it is it's a scoring matrix that you create as case writers to test the balance of your case, to attach numbers and points to all of the elements of your case. So you're reading through witness statements and you're assigning, well, there's a point there for the prosecution being made based upon what that witness statement said. And you're going line by line, paragraph by paragraph, assigning points to prosecution or defense, plaintiff or defense, depending on your case. And the goal, of course, being that at the end of that process for your 6 witness statements, you have a numeric value for the prosecution side, you have a numeric point value for the defense side. And the goal is that they roughly match each other, which should indicate that there's an equal amount of points available for each side of your case. In that way, it's a very good, very objective tool that you can use in your own state to assist in your case drafting. Now it is, I don't want to discourage anybody by calling it an onerous process, but it is a time-consuming process. It will take some time. There's a couple things that I guess you should know about that. One, it would take probably less time for you and your team locally to do it than it took me, Cynthia, and Carrie to do it over Zoom. So that's a plus, certainly if you can be together, plus the follow-up. So let's say you get to the end and your case is a little out of balance and you need to go back and you need to make changes. Those changes are much easier to make on the fly when you're together, you're with your team who drafted that case and so forth, as opposed to, in our position, reviewing it as a third-party case committee to give it back to a host. But in terms of the advantage of that process, I think it's, I'm underselling it, but it's pretty high because it does give you that point total that you're looking for in your case to know whether the defense is going to get 20 extra points potentially in a case, and that your defense teams are going to win more consistently on that basis than your prosecution teams. So it's a very good process to go through for case drafting. It's a very good tool for you to use. It is certainly something that Cynthia is happy to share and walk you through and give you kind of more of the ins and outs of how she does it. I don't have it pulled up. I'm sure I could find it and try to walk you through it as well, but maybe that's for another day. But it is an excellent process. I'm happy that we got to use it on the national board to kind of see that process, work through that process ourselves, to the point that we want to encourage all of our states, all of our members to really consider using that in your own state as well. So unfortunately, Cynthia is not here to tell you a little bit more about it. And of course, Carrie participated with me in that process. She can elaborate a little bit, but the key is if you're interested in looking at that process on a more direct level, is to be in touch with Cynthia from South Carolina, and she'd be happy to walk you through and talk you through that process.
Yeah, Sean's not kidding when he says that it's time consuming. I can't remember how many meetings we ended up having. I meant to look that up before we had our meeting today, but I think it was at least 6 2-hour meetings.
Oh yeah, it was at least
to go through the whole thing. And the way it works, just to kind of build on what Sean said, it's sort of like a table reading. So you sit down and somebody is reading the witness statement, and paragraph by paragraph you say, I think this is a point for the defense because XYZ or whatever it supports, or I think this is a point for the prosecution based on the information. And then sometimes you'll think something is a point and other people around you might not agree that it's a point. So there's kind of some back and forth on determining whether or not even what you're seeing is meant to be something that's scored. But it's definitely a good process.
Well, and Carrie, it occurs to me also that having written our own cases for the past 4 or 5 years, that would be good just to have on the table next to you, that as you're writing the case, to keep track of what you're doing as you go along, that you're stacking the one side or the other. So I can see it being very useful and just in the act of writing your own case rather than scoring something afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we in Idaho, we've started using something, and it's this year's the first year that we've used it, so it probably will end up needing some tweaks, but we're calling it a case roadmap. So it's sort of the opposite end of what you're doing in the case balancing. You go through each witness and you kind of outline what are the 2 or 3 main prosecution points and the 2 or 3 main defense points you want to make sure that this witness makes as you're writing it, so that you have it, and then you give it to whoever's writing the witness so that they have that information in front of them. And one of the main reasons we did that is that we found that case writers were developing their witnesses kind of in a vacuum. So, and then they didn't have any way of being able to check and see how their witness was supposed to dovetail with any of the other witnesses. So we've found that's been helpful in terms of having that information up front. Anybody have any other things that they use, or any questions about this process? Okay, quiet group today. I put the recruitment piece on the list. I just had a question. We are looking at hiring somebody next year to help us to grow our program. In particular, the outreach that we do to schools. And so I wanted to bring that to this group and see what are the things that people use to, what are the tools and processes that people use to recruit teams in your state? Anybody willing to share some of the things that they do?
Sorry, Carrie, what was the question?
What's your process for recruiting teams, in particular, reaching out to schools that maybe have not participated in the past?
I can speak for Oregon. Our organization, Classroom Law Project, does a lot of teacher professional development. And so from that, we are able to recruit from the teacher side. So if you have we do workshops all throughout the year. If we have a workshop about mock trial in the classroom or something like that, it's often pretty easy to identify a new teacher who is interested, because all of our kids are going to need somebody to sponsor that. It's really hard for a student-only led team to have it success. And so we go from the teacher side, I guess. And if you can get a teacher on board who's super interested, which will happen, we'll find those in our professional development workshops. We can start there, and then they'll recruit kids. I've probably got, I think, 4 or 5 new teams last year who were just that. They were teachers who are interested in the program essentially, and mock trial generally, and that translated to them fielding a team last year.
So your entry oftentimes is helping them helping teachers to figure out how they can integrate mock trial into their classroom.
Absolutely. And for a lot of them, they're really scared and nervous. They are excellent teachers. They're not necessarily mock trial people. And so they always get very nervous that they need to be an attorney or that sort of thing. So the other thing we can do to help reassure them is helping them identify attorney coaches to help them. And we have those contacts a lot of times. We can find somebody in the community who's willing to help out. But we found that when it's students leading it, it's tricky. I can have students who are very interested and very excited, but they just don't have the wherewithal to launch it. So we really have to get a teacher on board who can make it go.
And have you had students in the past approach your organization trying to start a team without a teacher?
Yes. And we have one school in particular. They compete every year. They are entirely student led. They do not have any adults helping them. And it's a tough go for them every year. They're not super competitive. And a lot of that has to do with consistency. So, the kids come and go. And the teacher can be the consistent person or the coach, but having students come and go, it really makes it hard for them. They do it, and they're pretty amazing. They ask for a grant every year from their school, the students do, to pay for their registration. But I've had others who have tried and failed. So they've come, they've started, they get the case, they start going, and they just don't have the wherewithal to make it happen.
Okay. Anybody else have other things that they're doing, like things that you send out, mailings or emails, or any other kind of outreach that is interesting for your state?
So we haven't started this yet, but it's on our list for Emily and I. We here in Washington, there's a lot of schools that do like an online advertising for nonprofits or programs, and something I've done in past YMCA jobs, which goes directly to the schools. So we're doing a virtual statewide delegation for Youth Ledge, for example. So we're going to reach out to school districts that don't have a local Y or don't have a program with our flyers that they'll post on their school platforms, because they're trying to save paper and they don't send them in backpacks anymore. And then for mock trial, creating that curriculum that can be right in the classroom. So connecting with those teachers, and virtually most of our pitch has been, hey, you're online and you don't know what to do with all that time. Here is a program that you can run for a whole quarter. So sorry if I was redundant there with Jessica's info, but that's kind of the route we've been going, and we're just a little late to the game in some of that advertising, but I think that'll be a big part of next summer and early fall.
Okay. Who else? Okay. Um, I think that I would like to recommend that we don't start a fundraising conversation right now, just because we only have about 10 minutes left. But I wanted to ask Paul, just in terms of the fact that we are having our board meeting this coming Saturday. Is there anything that you wanted to ask or let folks know, or solicit information ahead of our meeting on Saturday?
Well, gang, we're having our board meeting on Saturday. So, much of it is going to be the usual board meeting-y stuff. You guys are going to be missing out, those of you who won't be there, on the report of the treasurer and the pre-host report for Arkansas. I mean, you guys, you really, really should be running, because this you can't do away with. But if there is anything that you guys want us to take up or to make a part of our agenda, that's what we're there to do. The focus of the October meeting is generally broader than the May meeting. The May meeting, we're usually right up against the competition, so we have to sort of rip through some things. But if there are topics, this is a great opportunity for us to get them onto our agenda. We are talking about the things that we've covered, and you guys remember from our May meeting and from May meetings past, dealing with things like case balance, and you've heard a little bit about that, and grants and making the innovation grants as useful to you as possible. Obviously, we're going to be discussing the fact that none of you has yet volunteered to be a host for 2020, whichever it is, 2024, 2024. That's a thing we need, y'all. So, we're going to be talking about who's going to be getting personal calls, visits, and uncomfortable solicitations directly from the national board members. We are going to be talking about, some general policy and overall issues, including the composition of the nominations and nominating committee and the role of the immediate past host, which we have right now, but there are some things like that. So you guys can probably look forward to a potentially scintillating discussion about bylaws in May during our May business meeting. We will be sure to distribute coffee with that. And on our agenda is of course May, and where we are with respect to May. So if there are folks who want to have contributions about when and how they believe the decision of whether May's competition should be in person or virtual should be made, that's a topic on which we would all be happy to hear what you have to say before we start having those conversations directly with Indiana.
In particular, too, with relation to travel, like, are there any states whose, in a lot of places it's district by district, but where the schools have a travel ban for the full school year, just based on the health landscape right now? Okay. Anything else? Any other board members have anything they want to chime in on?
I think we have John Wheeler on the line finally from an undisclosed secure location. John, are you there?
I am. I can see you all, but I couldn't talk over the Zoom, so I had to call in, and then that presented a whole nother set of challenges. So thanks to the fearless help of Laura, I am now audible. I don't know. So anyways, it's great to see you all, and I had nothing to contribute. So there you go.
I don't know if you were on when we were talking about are there any updates from last month, stuff that people should be thinking about with relation to virtual mock trial?
I've been focused on about a month from now, we're starting our middle school problem.
Got it.
And we've had a series of meetings back and forth and trying to explain to coaches how it's all going to work. I really am considering it the guinea pig tournament, and stuff's going to go wrong, but they're middle schoolers. Who cares, right? That was a joke. And so we're going to learn a lot based on what we screw up for middle school. But so far, everyone seems to be on board, and we're using pretty much the same protocols that we've outlined in the various guidances, and kind of tweak them to meet our needs.
And just to piggyback on that, LA is having our 134, I could be wrong on the number, team thing starting in November. So LA County. So we'll be a big guinea pig for screwing up high school and middle school. And we can report back to you all, at one of our meetings. And Lourdes, feel free to add anything on that, but yeah, we'll see.
We may need Carrie's virtual cocktail hour, or virtual cocktail few hours, to debrief our screw ups in Iowa and California, because I can guarantee that we're going to have plenty of them here.
I know that Empire has their tournament where everyone's in one location at the end of this month, and then they have their other tournament where everyone's at home, like the Utah one was back in May. That one is going to be in November. So we'll have teams that will have been through it as well. So if you got any teams in your state, definitely have them talk to you about it.
We're having sorry, the UO.
No, go ahead, Jessica.
University of Oregon is hosting a scrimmage for us, an invitational, the first weekend of December. So that also will be totally virtual, and our teams will all participate. So I'll have some feedback. We are involved at an arm's length. I talked to Paul about this before. It's my attempt to get rid of mini mock. So they are doing that, but I'm sure I'll have a ton of feedback about how that goes.
Hey, John, I just wanted to say, just because since your tournaments are virtual, and people don't have to be on the ground, if you want somebody to judge or be, I don't know what you use for courtroom liaisons or whatever you do, reach out. I'm glad to help. I feel like right now, the more experience I can get, the better.
Anyone on this call is eligible to be a judge. And if you want to try your presiding chops, you can do that too. I will be sending out, we're doing an outreach with bar members, and then with former mockers who are now in college doing college mock. But I have a feeling that given the team's preferences, we're not going to be able to fill all the rounds. So don't be surprised if you see a general email going out to the state coordinator list saying, just because you're in a different state doesn't mean you can't judge Iowa middle school kids. And we have a couple of online signups on our website. But right now, that's a good thing for my YLD committee to take care of. And then about a week before the competition, they will come hat in hand and say, well, we failed you. And then I'll say, I've got another group I can hit up. So thanks for the offer, Carrie, and the rest of you, don't be surprised if you get a desperate email from me.
Okay, last call. Anybody have any issues that are keeping them up at night that are related to mock trial?
I was going to say, maybe this is encouraging.
All right.
Sorry, Carrie. I've talked over you 100 times today.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, we had our mock trial kickoff last night live on YouTube. It was, we had 10 minutes of technical difficulties at the beginning and no one left. So I'll say that they all stuck around and were very patient with the shenanigans at the beginning. And I had about 80 people on that viewing that. So that was encouraging if you're feeling like, is this ever going to actually happen? It was a little awkward and weird, but it worked, it happened, and they hung in there even when things were not working like they should.
So fun. What did you have in your kickoff, Jessica? What did you guys talk about?
We do, I do a press conference, a fake press conference where the witnesses appear to answer questions. This year we didn't do all of the witnesses, we only did the experts. Our case has been out for about a month now. So they get to ask questions of the experts. We also revealed a new exhibit. What they don't know is that's because we had some balance issues we had to deal with. So we put in a new exhibit, ta-da! But so they got access to a new exhibit. They got to speak to our experts, which were played by a colleague of mine and my father. Which was really entertaining. But that's fun. They ask lots of questions. They ask that in the live chat on YouTube. And so we're able to relay those questions and then they get their questions answered. And then we do a little like school shout out, who all is here. I probably had 12 schools represented, which is not a huge number, but it's my usual suspects. I imagine who would be there. But it's also recorded so people can play it back after the fact. So they can, if they couldn't be there live, they can watch it. And I know a lot of coaches were there who are going to then show it to their teams who couldn't be there on the YouTube. So it's fun. When we do it in person, it's a lot more fun, but doing it on YouTube was fun. And it's always entertaining to have some witnesses show up to answer some questions.
Very
Jessica, can you put the link and drop the link in the chat? It's kind of interesting. I like to watch it.
I'll do it right now. And ignore the awkwardness of it. It was pretty awkward, but it worked. So I'll pop that in there right now.
It sounds awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
A few people have asked if this is being recorded. It is, and we'll have it posted on the Nationals YouTube site probably a little bit later on this afternoon. We'll get September's and this one up. And then also I'll save the chat recording and get it formatted, and I'll email that out to the state coordinators list so that you can look back and see some information on there.
Great. Okay. All right, everybody, top of the hour, keeping to the schedule. Appreciate your time today, and we will see you next month. Have a good one, everyone.
Thank you, Carrie.